We're waiting for Ben to join us. I'm sure he'll do so soon. Hello, I hope you're all doing well. We are waiting for Ben. I apologize to Jacob already that this, well, I'll wait to tell Ben, but this might be a triggering, I think. We'll see how we go about it. Oh, you know what I didn't send? I didn't send Ben the summary from last week. Ben's telling me he needs 5 more minutes. No problem. We will gladly give you 5 more minutes. To those who are waiting, bear with us. We appreciate your patience. Is this the right one? Yeah. Hello, sir.
Just real quick, I do want to say, can I just say one other thing real quick?
Sure.
So I'm wearing, as you can see, headphones, and they're at low battery right now. So if later out I cut out, I'll just take my headphones off, and I won't speak, and then I'll put them into charge. So just as a heads up, because that might happen.
I appreciate that. Aside from that, though, how are you doing, Kirk? Are you feeling well? Is your family well? Have you had an interesting week?
I've had an interesting week, yeah. Although unfortunately this week chess club was canceled for me.
Shucks. I'm sorry about that. I'm sure that is very enjoyable and stimulating on multiple levels. Very good. And what about your last time on someone's stream? You were talking about maybe getting a job or working somewhere or starting to work somewhere.
So next week I'm going to be working at Buc-ee's. It's only going to be certain days, right? Right now the plan is that they told me that it was going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be evening shifts, so Tuesday and Thursday evenings.
Okay, and are you excited for this?
Well, I'm excited and anxious. I mean, Buc-ee's seems like an easier job than like gardening, or lawn mowing, but I'm still not. This is my first like out of thing job, so I'm a little bit nervous.
Being a little nervous or jumping in a little, getting in a little over your head is okay and healthy. Obviously, you don't want to get overwhelmed by it, but the world can be overwhelming, and having that feeling is not necessarily a bad thing. So you could use that, sort of in chi, right? Take that force and use it. So I think that's going to be great. Take yourself seriously, work hard, pay attention. You will do fantastic.
Yeah.
While we wait for Ben, was there any questions you had about the topic we're going to get into right now, or do you want to?
No, it's just I mean, I'm just curious what exactly we are talking about, because it's talking about the restatement of the Davidic thing. I'm just curious if there's anything in specific the things going to be reading about.
Well, we're going to discuss the prayer. I mean, it's going to be. I'm thinking as we're speaking how best to approach it, because we'll have to discuss, who Messiah is, who this horn is, what is, Why is it? I mean, even the language over here is contradictory. But again, like that's
Yeah,
our
I do
saviors.
actually. Yeah, I actually
Yeah,
do think I have a question about this. So this is going to be the restatement of the Davidic Messiah at the Messianic era.
this is what we're asking for.
Yeah, so I have a question about the view of the Messianic era in relation to Judaism and the philosophy of history, if that's okay.
Well, now we're gonna get into it. Bring it up in the proper place.
Okay.
Ben, shalom.
Shalom, shalom. How's it going?
Doing all right, sir?
Mercy. Yeah, Kirk, you're good.
I'm doing well. Yeah.
Amazing.
I would like to say, actually, there is a communal prayer in my neighborhood today. One of our neighbors, their son, is waiting for a heart transplant. So may this learning bring a blessing and a full recovery onto Michael ben Bracha Rina, and we're hoping him all the best and health, him to his family, and everyone else could jump on this blessing as well. Everyone who's not feeling well or is injured or sick, may God redeem you. All right, Ben. I think I sent you the last week's
Yeah, bring it
review.
up.
Let's jump into that. I was just telling Kirk right now. I'm trying to think how best to go about the blessing today, but it's definitely going to be triggering to Jacob. I warned him. But I think it's a very, very important blessing they're all very important blessings. And as like we've been going, we're really getting deep into this, and maybe this one will go on to next week as well. We'll see. Maybe I'll be a little too long-winded, but take us there. Go ahead.
Okay. Transcript. We go. Okay. So
Take it away, Ben.
Just a second. Let's get my computer in order. Okay. ולירושלים עירך ברחמים תשוב. To Jerusalem, your city, may you return in mercy. So that's the part of the blessing we had last week. Main question we discussed is why do we have a separate blessing for Jerusalem, for Yerushalayim? Why not simply pray for the return to the land of Israel? Main answer that we gave is that Jerusalem is not just a city. Jerusalem is the meeting point between God and Israel, heaven and earth, spirit and matter, and national life and holiness.
I don't know if we said every one of those things, but I see where it's going.
The phrase, may you return, means in the blessing, right? Well, God returns. So what are we asking for here? God returning to Jerusalem, Israel returning to Jerusalem, and the Shekhinah returns openly into history.
I'm just saying this narrative also weaves through the next blessings as well. So we'll get into these topics again. But Baksha, go ahead.
So the word berachamim, with mercy, teaches redemption can come willingly through mercy, or if it's not with mercy, you're not berachamim, it can come through judgment and suffering.
To redeem, right?
Yeah. The question is whether we cooperate with redemption in time. Who is this person?
Oh, we did talk about him, Andre Nehar. We was talking about he's this philosopher who was spoke about famously had these three different stages of the prayer. One was talking about the other Jew, the Israelis, and then eventually realized it's talking about him. Right, third stage, exile, collapse, Jerusalem becomes personally relevant to every Jew.
Out of curiosity, is this he's a Jewish author, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So we have the first stage. I think you just said it, Chazdi, the comfortable exile. Jerusalem is God's city, but not necessarily my responsibility.
Right. Let him do his thing. I could do my thing over here. He could redeem. He could do what he wants. Right. The second stage, and again, this is corresponding to like the Nazis sort of closing in. The second stage was supporting Zionism from a distance, right? Which is others need Jerusalem, but I could live my life outside. right? And then the third stage is once they come knocking on the door, realizing that no, like it becomes personally relevant to every Jew that like we need to be redeemed. Actually,
Yeah, I actually have a question about
Here, I
this.
would also, if I was Jacob, sorry, I would say that the Zionism, there's a distinction here between political Zionism and just the returning. So
Yeah.
here,
definitely.
Zionism from a distance is not necessarily the political aspect of it. But
Correct. Here, when it says Zionism, you're right. And
I'm just mentioning it because it's it's a basic tenet that even if you're Jewish and not Zionist, you still acknowledge you want to return to the land, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the blessing is to
Right.
return to Zion, right? So obviously we're talking about like the OG Zion, the
Right.
the real deal. Having said that, you're right. When we're speaking about here, when we speak here, it's sort of fast and loose with this concept of Zionism as well, because, and I think people that know us already at this point and knowing each other, when we say Zionism, we're not talking about just the political movement. We obviously mean much more than that as well. However, that being said, clearly there's a distinction between Jacob and I. When I do feel much more that I have relevant with the Zionism or what we could do with political Zionism, but we'll get into that also probably today.
I do have a question about this, if that's okay, which
Sure.
is there's a book about the philosophy of history called The Open Society and Its Enemies by Karl Popper, where he argues the idea that history follows inevitable laws leads to totalitarianism, and he uses the examples of the philosophies of Plato, Hegel, and Marx as examples of how totalitarianism can be inspired by this idea of inevitable history. And I'm curious, how can the Jewish belief in the Messianic era be compatible with something like a rejection of totalitarianism, given this connection between this certainty of inevitable historical laws with totalitarianism in history?
Well, that's also a question I think, again, we'll get into when we get into the blessing with like, what is the political power that's attached to it, right? Like what is this king that you're talking about? So and what's, again, that's a broader question, which also gets into like, what is the system you're bringing on? But again, good question. Let's talk about it soon.
Okay.
Write it down.
Shir HaShirim was presented as the drama of exile, the Song of Songs. God and Israel keep missing each other. Sometimes God is ready and Israel is not. Sometimes Israel wakes up too late. Exile is a crisis of timing.
Right. I remember saying that, cholat avani, it's like this, it's he says it's sick. It's like it's a sick relationship also with regards to it's unhealthy, right? Which is like you're constantly missing each other. Yes, exile is not the ideal, right? God is hidden within creation. Israel in exile understands divine hiddenness, but our mission is not to remain hidden, right? Our mission is to redeem the Shekhinah from exile. This is actually a quite deep idea over here, which is again like Hashem has a specific, unique relationship with us because we too, like him, he had to remove himself in a certain sense so there could be us here. And so the nation that understands him and has a unique relationship with him is also a nation that is being removed as well, a nation that comes from exile also, right? Returning to Jerusalem means restoring the Shekhinah to history, reconnecting heaven and earth, making holiness present inside real life, right? We talk about a seventh-day world. We want an eighth-day world right now. We discussed the next phrase, v'tishkon betocha uveneota, may you dwell within it and rebuild it, right? An important question. What does blessing ask? Why does the blessing ask God to dwell in Jerusalem before asking him to rebuild it? Right? It doesn't say first he should rebuild, then he should dwell. Jerusalem must have a soul before it has a building. The divine presence gives its city its meaning, but the physical building is also part of redemption. Jerusalem includes homes, roads, public institutions, government, economics, architecture, infrastructure, right? We spoke about this idea, right? Mashiach is here. He's just in traffic, right? It's hard to actually get there. Judaism does not separate holiness from the physical world. God is not only in prayer and Torah. God must also be revealed in society, politics, economics, and civilization. The temple must be inside a city because I just on that first note that we just said, we also spoke about that with the judges and the politicians, also for them, the yotzim, right? That they need to be mirroring God. Like, again, that's not the experience we have with these systems right now.
Yeah.
The temple, the Mikdash, must be inside the city because you and I were talking about this, Kirk, as well. Why a city, not a farm, right? Judaism is not monastic. Holiness is not an escape from society. Holiness must enter public life, right? I can't just be in a little village or a temple that's all the way out in the distance, like some monks participate in. Not that you can't achieve some sort of level of ascendance, but that's not a blessing to everyone, right? The danger of Jerusalem becoming only material, though, right? Nationalism without holiness, power without morality, a construction without a soul. It talks a little about what you're hinting at, Kirk, earlier. The opposite danger, there's the opposite danger, right? Spirituality that rejects statehood, politics, economics, and responsibility. Just like Enoch, then if you have there's no manifestation for that spirituality, then you can't be present here. Then the goal: unite spirit and matter, unite heaven and earth, make the physical world a vessel, right, for holiness. We then discuss may the throne of David, your servant, be swiftly prepared within it. Keyword tachin, prepare. I think actually the word in Sfaria was established.
But I don't establish, yeah.
Right. This means redemption comes in stages, right? First stage is Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah, son of Joseph. We speak about this very often over here. National revival, statehood, army, economy, political rebuilding, the body redemption, right? There's a universality to it as well. Second stage is Mashiach ben David, which we'll talk about in the next blessing soon. Torah, prophecy, universal morality, spiritual purpose, divine kingship as well. So redemption. Yosef represents the political. Let's just skip through this, right? We know he represents. The danger with Yosef is assimilation. Assimilation, losing Jewish identity inside civilization as well. All right, we did this. Yosef's correction at the end of his life. He asks that his bones be brought back to Israel. He realizes Egypt is not home. Civilization alone cannot redeem the world. We played around with this idea of Herzl, right? He is first believes in assimilation. After Dreyfus affair, he realizes Jews need a national return. Rav Kook saw Herzl as connected to the footsteps of Messiah as well. He also wants to be buried over here. Rav Kook's thought, the generation of redemption may look secular and rebellious on the outside, but inside it may carry a hidden holiness. It rebuilds a national vessel of the future spiritual revelation. I think we also read that very, very radical statement, right? That these lawbreakers and the audacity of these rebellious children, they will, supersede the prophecy of Moses, and they will, bring back the primordial Adam. So very, very, very intense. The crisis of Zionism, nationalism is necessary, but nationalism alone is not enough. Right? A nation that exists only for Israel becomes spiritually empty. Divine image, right? We spoke about Mashiach ben Yosef being the strong rootstock, and Mashiach ben David being a refined graft. How they work together, related to the prophecy in Yechezkel, how it's no fruit come out of it, but it's extremely strong. And for that, you need to have that source over there that then you could be grafted on top of, so you could actually bring out fruit. But both need each other, right? The cutting process looks painful, but it allows for higher fruit to grow. Therefore, the crisis of Zionism may not mean redemption failed. It may mean redemption is moving from Yosef to David, right? Which is very painful. We spoke about different examples about that. Final message: we must not destroy Joseph. We must elevate Joseph towards David. Just like I talk about often, which relates to the Zionism conversation we had, which we'll talk about again. But we are not satisfied where we are right now. Me as a rabid Zionist, as Jacob says, right? We understand that we must elevate Joseph to David, right? We no longer want a kingdom or even leaders in the in its manifestation or archetype as Saul. We want King David. Our generation's task: preserve the state, army, economy, and national body while filling them with Torah, holiness, morality, and universal purpose. I'm assuming that is what Jacob would like as well. Jerusalem is ultimately the place where God and humanity unite. Israel and the nations are blessed. Spirit and matter come together. Mashiach ben Yosef becomes elevated towards Mashiach ben David. Please God, amen. Can you hear it, son? Okay, let's jump into the next blessing.
Okay. Maybe chit chat a little bit while I do this.
Was that all? Was that all? Was that understood?
Yep.
I mean, like that you were following, Kirk. You were following. Good. Thumbs up. Great. Amazing.
That was good. It was always good to have a breakdown and to remember what we did before.
Yes.
So now let's bring up the next thing.
Yeah. Are you bringing it up or am I bringing it up?
I'll bring it up.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, now I need to just navigate to the right place. This is a process, just like the redemption. It's a process. Okay.
Okay.
Yerushalayim and Tzemach David.
Right. It's it's these short ones that actually also carry like a big punch. Et tzemach David avdecha meherat tatzmeach bekarno tarum beyeshuatecha ki lishuatcha kivinu kol hayom baruch ata Adonai matzmiach keren Yeshuah.
Okay. I'll read in English. Speedily cause the sprout of David, your servant, to flourish and exalt his power with your deliverance. We hope all day for your deliverance. Blessed are you, Adonai, who causes the power of salvation to sprout.
All right, see this again. Speedily. It's funny because the word goes to it's like it's tzemach David avdecha mehera. Right over here, you're like talking about the fifth word, which is the first word in English.
Karno.
Yeah, Karno. All right, your servant flourish.
But his power is
power. I mean, yes, that makes sense. But we could. Well, I mean, the symbolism obviously is tough. Okay. Et tzemach David avdecha merat tzmiach. Okay, so we could ask a question off the bat, right? Why are we talking about Mashiach? Which is, I think we once, I don't know if I did it like with you or I did like a separate thing about like Mashiach's names, right? One of Mashiach's names is also Tzemach. But like, why are we calling him a Tzemach? Why are we calling him a sprout?
Mm-hmm.
Should we not say bring David's kingdom or reveal the Mashiach? Restore the king, right? The return of the king.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic movie. Why are we not just saying that? And we're specifically using a language of growth over here, right? So I would say, like you were saying right now about a process, that is really the sort of the opening idea of this blessing over here, which is a sprout, right? A tzemach it starts underground. And it slowly develops, which obviously, like you said, requires time, and we need to be patient, and it also needs the right conditions, right? I need the right water, and I just unfortunately had something in my garden. He didn't make it, which is very unfortunate. Mm-hmm. But either way, right? But once the right moment arrives, right, you suddenly have this beautiful growth that suddenly accelerates, right? I just have this beautiful area of the garden. This is the season. Suddenly, you have this beautiful, beautiful blossom. Right, so this is like this tension that we have over here, which is on one hand we're saying tzemach, like you're saying tzemach, and you're saying mehera, right? I'm asking for gradual growth, but I'm also asking for it to happen fast, right, speedily. So that's like a contradiction right there. And again, we just went through Bonei Yerushalayim, right? The blessing we just read beforehand. And obviously we spoke about how the order is very important, right? If I first have to rebuild Jerusalem, I need this national foundation like we're talking about. We're building the Jewish sovereignty. Again, even though I hold that's true today, even if you're sitting and praying this prayer 500 years ago, you realize that first you need some sort of sovereignty. And only then can I actually ask for Mashiach to come, right? So this is really, again, the difference that you're seeing over here being teased out between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, right? And we don't have to go through the whole list because we just went through the list a second ago of all those differences between them and their universal mission and the army and the economy. So we know this. But again, the blessing of Tzemach David is not just that we're waiting for a person. It's about maturing of like our society into its highest spiritual form. That's what we're waiting for right now. We're waiting for like, we want to take it to the next level. Well, to the final level in a certain sense, or maybe really just the beginning. But indulge me for a second while I take a step back. We'll go back a little in history because I wanna tease this out again. Okay. Let's first go to the tribe, right? So there's the tribe of Judah, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's go even further back. Jacob is blessing his sons, right? Before he dies in Egypt. And right, there's a famous Rashi. He wanted legalot et haketz. He wanted to tell them the future, but he gives them these blessings. Now, you would think that our boy Reuben would get the first blessing because he's the firstborn. But Jacob doesn't give him the bracha, right? Yaakov tells him that he's pachaz, right? Pachaz kamayim, that he's unstable, right? And Reuven is, he's passionate and like there's a lot of great things about him that we see him with, but he's also impulsive. We also see that. And because of that, he is being disqualified from kingship, right? Kingship is something that needs timing and patience. And the blessing that we might have spoken about this in the past, the blessing that he gives Ariah, right? Gur Ariyata. But if you look at the blessing over there, I don't remember it all by heart, but there's different names over there, right? He's a lion and then he's a cub, and it goes through this gradual growth that Judah is going through this bracha. And you can see this in his descendant in King David himself, right? David is anointed king long before he becomes the king. Again, I recommend people see the animated film David, which is very good. But that anointing, right, when he is Moshech Oto B'Shemen, right, we anoints him when Shmuel, right, when Samuel anoints him, this is still David is walking around. I mean, King Saul is still walking around. And there's years that he's waiting. And he's also chased by Saul. And he actually has opportunities also to actually, kill Saul in the cave famously. He can take over, but he doesn't do it, right? He's not forcing history. He's allowing it to happen. And that's why I think King David is, again, one of those archetypes who understands that true kingship needs to, what's the word for lead? Bashel, to ripen. It needs to ripen, right? Again, to be clear, David is not passive and he's very courageous. He just acts when necessary, right? Even when he brings the stick and the stones when he's fighting Goliath, right? He's being tactical with how he's going about that. However, why is patience so important? Obviously, we're in a world today where no one has patience for anything, but we know that if there's a leader that doesn't have the vision of patience, right? That's also like a real big problem. Right? Does it mean like we never act at all? Does it mean that like all urgency is wrong? Right. Again, the gradual growth of things is history has slow periods, but also history has these sudden turning points, right? You have this with Yetziat Mitzrayim famously, which is you have this long exodus. The process leading to Exodus is very, very long, but then it happens all of a sudden, all overnight. They have to run. We have to make the matzah. There's no time for it to grow. For it to rise. You also have this with.
And you have it by the sea, but in the Midrash with Nachshon ben Amidah, right?
Yeah. So I was going to say we have it in Purim, right? Which there too. Vayivalu lavi Haman, right? They hurried to bring Haman, right? He has this whole story he's planning, and suddenly, like, when it's going down, she's like, I want to have a party. I want to have another party. Quickly get him. Like, the story starts speeding up very, very quickly.
Right.
And I would say, obviously, this is true also in my eyes, with the declaration of the state of Israel also happened in a very narrow window. Like literally, just before the British mandate ended, they went and they got all together into that room over there. Like it was nuts, right? So there too is like this very, very like this little window of opportunity, right? There are moments when waiting is really wisdom, but there are moments like when waiting becomes a failure, like you were just saying right now with like when Nachshon ben Amidah. There's a famous, I'm sure you've heard this before, of Beitach Yishena. Well, we first say lo bechipazon tetzu. We say this in Isaiah, right? Which is like it's not going to be in haste. You're not going to be able to go out in haste. And why is the future redemption not happening in haste all the way? Like if the Exodus happened in haste, why is Isaiah telling us that it's not going to be in haste? Now, in Egypt, again, like nature is being broken, and it's necessary because humans are trapped in slavery and there's idolatry, and like they're stuck, and they need this huge miracle. But I'm saying and we know this miracle itself has limitations, right? Because even though it bypasses nature, right, it doesn't fully redeem nature from within.
Right, you can't invoke miracles. Miracles happen. So it's like you don't rely on miracles. that's
but
for
not only because we don't rely on miracles, because they're limited. Why? Because the final redemption that we're asking for is much higher than even Yetziat Mitzrayim, even than the Exodus, right? Because we're not looking to break nature, right? It heals nature. It's here to reveal Hashem in natural historical processes. That's the fusion we want to get to. Like, let's say differently. The final Geulah, the final redemption is slower because, not because it's weaker, because it's much, much deeper, right? If the Exodus of Egypt redeemed Israel from Egypt, obviously you could see it had a lot more from that. Even the founding fathers of America clearly see themselves as Egypt as well. But the final redemption that we're all hoping for, this needs to be a redemption that redeems the whole world, right? It's not enough just to redeem the people of Israel outside. But so that's why it needs to be slow. However, we also know from Isaiah, which is Ani Hashem Beita Chishena, right? Which is I am Hashem, in its time I will hasten it. Right, so the Gemara gives this famous example, which is "Zachu achishena lo zachu beita," as in like if the people of Israel, the nation of Israel, merit it, then it will hasten it, and if they don't merit it, then it will come in its proper time. This is in Tractate Sanhedrin. I don't recall what page, but if someone wants to check it out, it's also fascinating. Now, again, we go back to this tension, which is it going to come on time or is it going to hasten it? So the answer, again, is both. Redemption has a process, but that process could move slowly or quickly, right? And this brings us, let's get back into our blessing now. Sorry for the tangent. But when we say Meharat Tzmiach, right, that we want it to be speedily, right? I'm not asking for an instant redemption. I'm asking for an acceleration of growth, right? Please go ahead.
I have a question. Is this metaphor of growth and of sprouting, do any rabbis in a Kabbalistic context bring this to like any understanding of like vegetation or farming or something like that? And
no, and yes. As a no, I can't tell you. I could think of something on top of my head of like something clear about that connection. But yes, with regards to that, all things need to grow, right? The redemption, like we were saying, not only does it have to happen on the societal level and the infrastructure level, but on all levels, right? On all, the nature is supposed to be brought up to its holiest level. So of course, it also has to do with agriculture as well. Using that terminology has its own level of reference, aside from the analogies we're using right now. Of course, it also is connecting to the root idea of it, which is almost poetic in that certain sense, which is, yes, the rain we connect to and the food we eat and what grows from the grass or from the ground.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I do understand there's like the concept of pardes, which is different layers of abstraction. I'm just curious if there's a certain layer of abstraction in which you could connect these things.
I hear what you're saying over here. So again, yes and no. It's almost like implicit inside the wording that you would say, like if you're Mateo in the Pardes because you want to be growing inside, what could be growing from there? Eventually all of us want to be growing. So yes, I think that there's a connection over there, but I can't tell you like an exact rabbi that.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's fine. So let me see.
I wanna jump back to what you were saying though, Ben, about well, there's this midrash, right? That the people, the children of Israel are by the Sea of Reeds, the Red Sea.
Mhm.
And the tribes are arguing like who is going to enter first. And then Benjamin, right, jumps in first, like, this is what the Midrash says. And Judah throws stones on him. And there's like a verse in Psalms that references this. I don't remember where this verse is. But the famously the Netziv from Velazhin, he then explains that all night there was winds, right? And Judah said that, this is a gradual process. The winds are going to dry out the sea, and then we could actually cross. And Benjamin said, he's like, no, if we wait until everything is dry, then there's no miracle really visible. We have to jump in now and actually show that this is like, we believe in this miracle as well. And the result with both of these things happened, right? The sea split and the ground they stepped on as well. So again, this was the Midrash trying to let you know that both these visions are necessary, right? It's not one or the other. They need to be together. Judah represents his patience and this gradual development, and Benjamin represents this, this courage to jump inside. However, it is a tragedy that, it's not that they disagree, which is a tragedy. It's that Judah ends up throwing stones at Benjamin, right? Like, there's room for disagreement, obviously, about, the pace of redemption. But, if the essence obviously is a redemption of the unity of Israel. And I'm saying this lovingly, which is like clearly there's disagreement between Jacob and I. But obviously the main goal is for us to be able to walk up to the temple together, right? Like that is the main goal behind all those things. Now, to something that Kirk said, which has to do with monarchy, right? Which is Israeli, we're saying bring us back, right? Bring back the King David. So why, is monarchy even the ideal, form of government, right? Which is like there's a deep political question, and is this really ideal? Like among the Rishonim, as we call them in Chazal, there's a disagreement about this. Some say that monarchy is not ideal, and it's only like because human weakness that we have to take this on, right? This is like I can't remember which Midrashim talk about this, but the Abarbanel and Rav Sadia Gaon. But the Rambam, the great eagle, rules that appointing a king is actually a positive mitzvah. Okay, that's the Rambam's view. That's what we like to quote here often. And in his view, in the Rambam's view, a king gives the people appoint the king, and the king gives the nation like unity and authority and direction, and really the ability to act historically. But again, the question is, why is the Torah commanding about a specific political system? So sometimes a monarchy works, and sometimes a democracy works, and we know that doesn't fit all cultures. So again, then it's even, and we spoke about this in the past as well, Ben, but it's very important to understand and see that this is already inside. Our sages are discussing these things, right? When it says that when you come to the land, right? Ki tavo la'aretz ve'amarta asima alai melech kechol hagoyim asher sivoti, right? When I come to the land, and it says, and you'll say, I'll set up a king like the nations around me, right? So the Netziv gives this beautiful explanation. It says that the phrase ve'amarta, right? And you'll say, that means it's a mitzvah that becomes active when the people reach a historical point where monarchy is appropriate, right? Like I need to get to a place where I have to be in a position where I even have the time to even consider. Think about asking someone like that in all of Jewish history, basically. Like, do you want to consider like what kind of system you want? Like, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, people are murdering us left and right. Like, why would I consider what ruling? But here it's saying, okay, when you get to the point in history where you could start considering these things, then the phrase when the nations around me is not necessarily negative, right? It means that Israel has to pay attention to the political culture of the world. And a monarchy is a form, that allows the nations to succeed. Then Israel also should appoint a king. But why are we dependent on the world? And this is not a bad thing. Again, Israel is meant to, right? We are supposed to influence the world. We're not supposed to be the private religious community that just sits within itself, right? We say, right, the families of the earth. People say nations, but really it's the families of the earth shall be blessed through you, through through Abraham. And the influence of Israel, we have to participate in the political world, right? We're not alone. There's other parties around us. And we're told, right, that they're not all supposed to become Jewish. And presumably, they need to be able to talk to, like I'm saying, even when we want to build the temple, and maybe, again, we'll be able to go to Lebanon to get cedar. How does that happen? Who's paying for that? I'm saying there's a whole system that has to happen over there. And we need a state and sovereignty and law and an economy. All these things are necessary, right? Because otherwise we can't influence the world. So the kingdom of David is not only for Israel. It's a political vessel through which Israel can bring blessing to the whole world, ultimately. That's what we want to be doing. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, as we often do, Rav Kook, but he says there's different forms of monarchy. He has this cute idea about England. He says there's hard monarchy and there's soft monarchy. And he says people look at England, right, like the Queen of England at the time, but or the King of England at the time during Rav Kook, but basically saying that it's not serious. But Rav Kook has this insight and says that basically the king is not great because people are dependent on like his favor, really. The king is great because he helps people mature into a place where they could govern themselves, right? Like, you don't need me if you're a very immature society. You need me to be the king that's in charge and making all these decisions right now. But as you grow older, I could take a back seat because you guys could, achieve something greater together, right? So how this connects to Zionism, or at least the way I try to understand these things, which is, well, when he was younger, to be fair, when he was younger, Rav Kook had this idea that he took from there's Rabbi Hillel in the Gemara says that Israel may not need a personal Messiah. He says because they already killed it. Like, they had that chance and they missed it, and there's no more Messiah anymore. However, that opinion gets rejected. He's not seen as a heretic for saying that. However, it gets rejected. But Rav Kook goes back to that and said that there's like a deep meaning over there, which is that maybe the Messianic force could appear through, right, like a national awakening and in the people itself. However, that idea, I think the idea of the Davidic king really can't be erased. For thousands of years, that's what we've been looking for and striving for. And this is an image that's really part of the soul of our nation. So while there's that play with that, I don't know how much weight that carries. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It kind of reminds me of when you said that. I think you said the Nazi was saying that maybe now you can't fathom it right now. Like, why would we want a king? But you're waiting for the point where you will be able to accept that, or it will become evident to you. It reminds me of Korbanot, about sacrifices. Like, at this point, it's kind of, and it has kind of like a similarity with it being having a king, which is kind of like a request with something that is like almost like a compromise in a sense.
Yeah.
Right, seems foreign.
It's hard to imagine us requesting, or for a lot of people, it's hard to imagine like us requesting to have to do those sacrifices again, animal sacrifices specifically.
Right.
But the idea is that when you will be at the point where you could have them back, then you will be able to consider, like, is this like now, like, you will understand how appropriate or it really is, right? And I get the sense of that just thinking about the temple as well. I kind of like not struggle, but I kind of think about this idea of like hoping for the new temple to be built. Like, what does that mean? So I tend to think about it a little bit like what of like the fact that the temple. Now I had a way to put it, but now I forgot it. But like, you can think about it that if we are so united that there is a place that we can all go to and we can all worship together, like going to one big stadium and watching a rock show and everybody doing that, then we will understand how important a temple is. because a temple is like a rock stadium, but just on steroids. Because you do it all the time. It's not only about music. It's about your entire life. There's so much in it that if the whole society can sustain the idea of a temple, then that's the point. The point is the society being able to sustain the idea of a temple, not the temple itself. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I do have one question about this idea of the Messiah and nationalism, if that's okay, which is basically, so have you ever heard of the concept, or have you ever heard of the idea of like Dunbar's number?
Sure.
So I think that might tie into the idea of nationalism in the sense that there's an idea that you can only manage what's in your local control, and so there's an idea that Jews should sort of focus inwardly because they can only they only have so much energy to focus on themselves than on other nations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but but we've influenced the whole world, right? We influenced the whole Christian world, and we influenced the whole Arab world, and that's just from this little people. Think of all the Eastern religions. No one was connected to that, and then comes like a certain point of history where suddenly there's an explosion, right? Of what's happening. The West meets the East, and so and it has tremendous amount of influence on the world. So I don't. You are separate conversation, which is this is true about all countries, and this is true about individuals. Everyone should look inwards, obviously, before they start lashing out at other people. Having even more so when you have, or you believe, or you claim to have some sort of responsibility, a spiritual responsibility, you very well be making sure that when you come correct, right? So while I'm very excited about, I can speak very positively as I do about where we are in our place in history. There's also again, I could zoom out and see amazing things, and I could zoom in and see horrible things that make me extremely depressed, right? It makes me think we're seeing the exact opposite, which is a very scary tension to be part of. However, Gilad, you ready to get into who's Mashiach? But we'll keep it light. But the Rambam's view, because again, we spoke about different versions over here, but I'm trying to stay somewhat with some sort of narrative over here.
If I could just I wanted to
respond
to something from before. So first of all, hi. I hope everyone's doing as well as possible. Two things that came up for me. One is when the nations would be blessed by Israel, etc. I personally see that as a sort of calling that the Jews have always, throughout Jewish history, have upheld to the extent they've been able to. So whenever there was
at its best
tragedies, yeah, I'm just saying whenever there were tragedies, famines, human suffering in the vicinity of Jewish communities in the diaspora, it's quite clear that the trend is that the Jews that had the wealth to aid people in those times had acted to do that. So I don't know if I would connect that phrase specifically with the notion of the land, of return to Israel. And you're muted, so I don't. Yeah.
Wait, you said you had another thing you wanted to say.
Yeah. The second thing is regarding Ben's point about when we when we want to have a king, it would be, we can't fathom it now, but when we reach the point we would all want it, and we can't fathom making animal sacrifices, but when we reach that point, we would see it. I mean, it might be something, I don't know. You could take this critique coming from outside or from within, you could base it on text or not, but I think there's a real danger in just inverting that. And I think we see it happening right now, which is, it's tempting to say, oh, it's okay, we can't see it now, but we'll see it then. And then that's the human nature is going to say, right. So let's start to understand, how it makes sense to have a king or to take all the land or to make animal sacrifices, because we already know that that's where redemption happens. So let's hasten it, right? And I think, I find that like,
I could
sure, like there's a truism. I'll just finish the point. There's a truism about like when you ask me like, okay, but would you agree to a temple when you actually want a temple? I mean, of course, that's a truism because I want.
I think you're touching upon a very important point, and you're right. And unfortunately, I could talk about it in this, in maybe this very romantic way, right? And I'll take more than that. Well, actually, I don't even need to go to that place. But the same verses that I'm basing the things I'm talking on, right, could easily, and we know, could turn people violent, could make people have, right. So on the ground, and we were talking about this earlier, which is like there's this balance that you have to obviously keep. To not to Ben's defense, because you said like I don't think it was like such a critique, but I don't think Ben was even saying, which what you're saying is true. Someone could hear that and say, okay, so sacrifices and things like that, and let's just go up to the temple, that I could hasten this. I can't imagine it right now. I'm just going to make it happen, and once I'm in it, then I'll be able to imagine it, and then it's going to happen. So I don't think that's what Ben was saying. Ben was saying that we can't fathom that kind of idea, not saying like, and now we should start having sacrifices, rather that like, in this future world, right, who knows what kind of experience we're having now. I should also say that that's one interpretation, right? Obviously, like there's a people that see it only as a Beit Mikdash, and there's people that see it as a Beit Tfilah, Lechol Ha'amim. And there's people that read it as there's going to be sacrifices, and there's people that have like a much more dialed down version of that. And that's why I think even about the character of Mashiach, right? Again, following the Rambam's understanding, right? This is not a magical figure that's coming out of history, and he doesn't need to perform miracles, and nature doesn't need to change, right? This is a leader that emerges from within the Jewish people. There's texts that talk about how he doesn't even know he's Mashiach until it happens, as in like just like we know with Abraham, with Moses, right? 80 years he's doing his thing. He's in Egypt. Who knows? Maybe he's in being a warrior or in Ethiopia. Either at some point he suddenly becomes a redeemer, becomes a leader. So we also believe that that's a possibility as well. Now, what he's supposed to be doing, again, according to the Rambam, he leads the Jewish people. He fights the wars for Israel. He strengthens the Torah. He builds the temple. He gathers the exiles. Again, and there's no order to this, right? The Rambam says, I don't know. We don't know how this is going to happen, right? Like what necessarily happens first. There could be certain parts that happen first. But what's very important is that the Rambam says that if, I can't remember the exact quote, but if he does all these things, and he managed to make it all happen, then he's Mashiach bevadai. Then clearly this is happening. Then he's the dude, right? Now, what he's saying over here is that Mashiach is being recognized through a historical success. That's how we know it's the guy. Doesn't matter what he claims. It doesn't matter what he does. We'll have to see actually if it manifests. And that's why anyone that says Mashiach, if he didn't unite the people of Israel together, which would obviously mean that there needs to be a conversation with the secular. There has to be many conversations that are going to happen on many, many levels. So if that doesn't happen, we won't see success, right? So he's, again, not identified by miracles. He's identified by fulfilling the tasks that he has according to redemption. And that's why before there's a state of Israel, right, we lacked any sort of vessel for redemption. There's no sovereignty. There's no army. There's nothing. So we're just waiting for Mashiach. But today, when we return it, we have some sort of sovereignty. And you could say, like, it's not the real sovereignty. We don't just wait for Mashiach. Now we have to actually build a world which Mashiach could appear. And I go back to that joke about, like, Mashiach's here. He's just in traffic. And this goes all the way to the politics, which is there's no way Mashiach could appear, in my estimation, with the kind of government you have right now. Like it doesn't, it can't allow, and I'm going, forget like Arabs, Jews, even right now, politics are so bad. They're like, maybe the flight is going to be too expensive for this dude. Like he can't literally get inside. Like you don't have infrastructure that allows for an education like that. As in, if little Mashiach right now is in Afula in 8th grade, right? He had years of Corona school, war school, 35 kids in a class due to bad decisions made by governments and things like that. So like, again, you're not building the groundwork to allow yourself to have this thing. And it's a problem because this goes back to the Song of Songs. You're sort of thrusted into a moment in time, but the vessels are thin, right? Like you're like, okay, and there's all this energy, there's this holiness out there, but I can't do it right now. I don't have people that are together. I have people that are fighting. I have people that are fighting about religion. Like and I need to sort of do something with this energy. But before we go on to continue in the pasuk, because I think we've exhausted this thing, Gilad, you wanted to say something?
I think also Ben wanted to say something. I didn't.
Sorry. Ben. I heard someone say something.
Well, I was gonna go back to respond a little bit. So I'll try to keep it brief.
Please.
I mean, I agree with Gilad. Like, I understand where you're coming from, and the way that what I mentioned is more of like it's me thinking through it. I'm trying to understand it. So I don't have a clear way of thinking about it yet. But that's, but the way that I understand what you're saying, but the way that I see it, the way that I try to understand the idea of a temple or sacrifices, maybe sacrifice is a little bit too hard to think about, but let's just stick with a temple where I have better analogies to it. Is almost it's like a soft goal. It's a soft idea, just like a Mashiach, at least from the Rambam, right? And for the Rambam, he says, I don't know exactly what it is, and for me, I always try to think about it in a secular way because that's how I grew up, and I know that, right? So I can think about, okay, if I don't have the idea of a Mashiach or of a temple, I have another idea of like, everybody living in a good place and being united, or, being able to, all of us go to Mars together and build like the rocket, So I'm trying to make these equivalents of like utopias, or not necessarily utopias, but these like soft ideal goals. But the idea is that maybe it does need to be soft, because if it's hard, you're rigid. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that obviously what you're saying is almost like confusing the means for the goals, confusing the animal sacrifices for the goal, and also almost like jumping ahead. Like if you're thinking that the goal is to do the sacrifices, then you just bring the sacrifice to the temple, and you think like the video, like the videos that I sometimes see with people like trying to bring sheep, which is kind of ridiculous, right? But they might be trying to say something specific, but there's the soft goal, hard goal concept, and then they're also like confusing the means for the end. Those are two things that make me think about that.
I just, before you respond to that, I just want to, no, nothing. Go ahead, Gilad.
Yeah. So I think I generally agree, and I think that is a kind of perennial in some ways, because I think every culture has utopia, right? Whether it's like when it's too rigid, when it's too hard, it tends to lead to disaster and to great tragedies. But I do think that like a soft, like you have to have a compass, and that's like how I sort of think about like the utopia, and then a lot of thinkers have described it as kind of like when it stops functioning as a compass and starts to be like a clear vision of like this is what should happen, then human nature tends to be to function very awfully with that. Like, and that's what we've seen, I think, in the cases where that happened. You mentioned Plato and Hegel. Oh no, not you. Kirk mentioned Plato and
The
Hegel.
image of God is that's why we can't draw God. That's why we
Yeah.
can't get him doing. I think that's the same problem.
Yeah, and I do think like I agree generally, right? And I'm not religious, but I can agree to those things from a secular standpoint. The second thing I wanted to I don't know, clarify is when you were saying, Chazi, like that you don't think Mashiach can arrive with this government. Because I'm ignorant in the mindset of people who are messianic. Is it not the case that Mashiach can come tomorrow or right now or I don't know how that coincides.
Sure.
The thing you're saying with the contract, like signing a contract, for whatever, like an apartment, and say, oh, but if Mashiach comes, then the contract is void.
So
is Chazi Chabad as well, or is he not?
no, so it's, first of all, could it happen? The answer is like, sure, it can happen. I mean, and that, I think some of that is also psychological / theological also, when you have something that's going to give you hope as well, as like a people in diaspora for thousands of years, knowing that like it can happen every day, it's going to happen. So there's an element to that as well.
Yeshuat Hashem Gerefine, is that like
exactly right? Exactly. So, I mean, giving people meaning, right? We know this from Viktor Frankl. Obviously, goes a very, 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 very long way. Now, as a messianist, right? There's different interpretations. Now, I'm saying that I'm following right now in this version of me right now, right? In the narrative of this class, I would say that according to the Rambam's reading, right, Mashiach is going to come and he needs to do all these things. And I'm saying for him to do all these things, that could only, like, it's sort of like, if there was no currency right now for some reason, it's going to be very hard for Mashiach to get things done, right? Because how is he so my point being, you need to have a system that works. And if you have a system that is like failing on so many levels, does that mean, again, there's things that we do fantastic and we do great. My point being that I think for a structure, and that's why it's so scary, because if you zoom out, you're like, wow, Israel, regional power, this is amazing. Like AI, like it's awesome. If you zoom in, you're like, but, which is also so ironic and sad, which is like, you guys could be like performing here if you guys just did this right and this right. And much of those things that need to happen, quote unquote, right, many times have to do with personalities, which sounds ridiculous, but has to do with people who don't understand their position. And I was going to say this earlier, but you see this, it relates to the sacrifices. You see this with Saul and Samuel. I was learning this with my son. He comes in and he says, why am I hearing the sound of sheep? And he's like, oh, what do you mean? I kept some of the sheep. We're going to bring it to a sacrifice to God. And he says, yeah, but God told you to destroy everything. Like, what do you think God prefers? For you to bring him sacrifices or for you to listen to him? And the government that we currently have is a model of a Saul government, which is not understanding what it's supposed to be doing. There's ego involved over there. There's mood swings involved over there. It's small. We want David, right? We want someone that understands a much bigger picture. I want the shepherd and I want the person that understands both of these responsibilities. Again, these are general ideas. But so when I say that it can't come right now, the Mashiach that I, map out in my head, right? It seems to me like he can't wear that crown in the current system. Even if we identified him as like, we think this is the dude, we're saying we're only going to know he's the dude once he succeeds. And right now, it seems like we're the ones causing the traffic. Like, as in the time is right, almost like the world is saying like, hey, huge opportunities, the world's changing, right? Like things can happen. But like, why are we fumbling again and again and again and again? And again, I hope the things who knows today with what they see in the news, there's 7 other deals happening again, like it's Gadol Aleinu, and this is a separate conversation that you Gilad, and we have. But my point being, it's almost, to take it very specific, the world is looking at you, and like, again, you're positioning yourself as a regional power, which I want to claim needs to take the world towards, redemption. Yet you still have to be dealing with, like, then you have to also be dealing with what happened with Ben Gvir this week, right? So those two things are, like, it's crazy, because, like, if you have that kind of energy, you would think you would not be able to achieve the other element. You would think how are you still playing at that level as well? And that's obviously a huge tension that we have. Ben, I don't know what your timing is like right now. Do you
Yeah,
got a boogie?
I need to head out.
Okay.
So we'll continue next week with this blessing. Take care, Ben.
Take care, Ben.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm tempted to try to talk more about this, but I want to be fair. Yeah. So Gilad, I don't know if that puts you at any rest that I'm saying that, or that makes you feel more tense. But
No, I was just specifically, I had a question about just understanding your belief in that sense, what messianism was.
So can I? Sorry, yours, Nico. Okay, no, it's not. I was just going to say, is it okay if I offer my perspective on where I think the disagreement lies?
not only is it okay, we would
I
benefit.
think that from Gilad's perspective, he can correct me if I'm mistaken. He doesn't believe in a traditional understanding of God. The idea of bringing in, I think he would say that the idea of bringing in some sort of teleology as like intrinsic to the structure of the universe, I think he would disagree with, because of his fundamental ontological commitments to what exists. Would you say that's fair?
Do you agree with that, Gilad? Or you're like, did I say that?
I don't know this representative.
I'm not sure where that came up. I mean, I don't. I find it hard to agree or disagree with what I don't find relevant to a specific topic. I feel like at this point specifically, I'm trying to understand how Chazi sees Mashiach, and I'm trying to understand which parts of the way that Chazi sees the way forward is a shared direction that we can walk together, regardless. If we see it as if we're going in the same direction, I don't need to really get into the weeds of whether that's 32.5678 degrees or any other very close direction to that, right?
I think so deep what you're saying right now. Let me. I know I might sound patronizing right now, but can you I love you, so don't take it that way. I want to read to you something because I'm going to give you praise, so just bear with me.
I also do have some other questions, but I do
1 second.
Yeah.
Let me share some love. So I don't know if you heard it on the stream, but I mentioned it. And I want to say it again because of what you just said right now, and specifically the clarification you made as well. So Rabbi Cook says, where is it? Okay. Bnei HaChatzpanim, Portzei HaDrachim VeHaGdarim, which would be Gilad. Gilad would be the there's an audacity. He is the rule breaker, again, all in relation to the religion, of course, right? The tradition. הם עתידים להיות נביאים מן המעלה היותר עליונה. They are going to be supreme prophets. ממקום שלמעלה ממדרגות נבואת משה רבינו. Higher than the prophecy of Moses, which is insane to say because we obviously know and we're teaching that no one is higher than Moses, not even the Messiah himself. ומזהירה אליה דאדם הראשון, and the primordial Adam, brighter than his light. ובהם ועל ידם עץ החיים מתגלה בכל מלואו v'tovo, and through them does the tree of life fully reveal itself in all its greatness. Pretty nuts, right? Now, you then came and said, right, you articulated to Kirk that, like, I don't need us to agree on the same this. It's more about, I want to know about the direction we're on, because then, like, there's a beautiful midrash about, right, when the Jews are, when the Israelites are in the sea, the Red Sea, it opens up to 12 different, it doesn't split to 2, it's split to 12, and each tribe had their own path, right? Obviously that didn't happen. Saying even, well, who knows? I believe in the miracle, so maybe it happened like that as well. So they split 3:12, and it says that there were windows like in the water so they could see each other, right? They didn't see their footprints, right? But they knew, as it basically, like, I don't know exactly how you're walking and what your path is on, but I know we're heading towards the same direction. And when I read that, is like, whether that idea was spoken about, 700 years ago, and then again expressed through you right now, that is what the audacity is part of. The idea is to, and we as the Orthodox, it's very hard for us. We don't know, right? What one reaction was the ultra-Orthodox, which locked themselves in. They're saying, listen, this is too big for us. We can't. For years, we all played along. This is way too complicated for us with modernity, and we need, and we really need to just, we're going to lock ourselves in until the man comes, and when we know that it's basically safe to come outside, we're going to come outside. And that is legitimately what they think, and obviously there's political ramifications for that, right, on the ground. Then there was a different take, which was like, okay, we're going to, we're going to work together. We're going to, again, from a religious perspective, we just don't know how to, we don't have an authority right now. We don't have a structure also. I'm saying that, like, could come and say, like, okay, wait, is Gilad kosher enough? Is he good enough? If there was like 1,000 other Gilads, then it would be okay. But if there's only 2, then I still have to consider them not good. Like, you understand, there's a dynamic where to shift and to change, we don't remember, we don't remember what it is to imagine a move like that, because it's all we spoke about is like, when that day comes. And my claim is, like, we're in it. It's happening. Hey, wake up, right? Like, you're a sovereignty. You, like, there's a real war happening. There's ethics. There's rules. I'm saying, not only do we need to wake up, we need to go into our theological suitcase, take out those tools, and be like, okay, we do know how to answer these things. We do have methods to how to figure, like, what it is that we want to do. And for that, people, the Chamerosh Mashiach, like the donkey of Messiah, or like when we talked about the Messiah, son of Joseph, these things work together because, again, we don't know. We're carrying with us, we are carrying with us this theological suitcase that we need your assistance to shape and change. And I think that's the tension. That's the big tension that we're in right now. And that's really, I think, like the true invitation, which requires a real discussion, which is happening on multiple levels. We're having right now, we've been having for a few years right now. There's a famous Israeli right now, David that is going through everywhere right now on TV, and he's having his conversations right now. So to me, this is all evident to that, which is there's going to be change from you, and there's going to be change from me, and that is going to manifest into something new. The question is the willingness to continue going up that mountain. And while my claim is, of course, there has to be a religious element to it. The only reason the religious element matters, right, is because I want to get to that end zone. And the only way I can get to that end zone is if all the quote unquote secular natural element of that is also working well. Like, if my judge is not actually participating in justice, I can't move. And that's why a religious body at this point that it's saying, no, either on one extreme, Zionism is like the work of the devil and it's hell, to a point of being like, well, I'll be in Zion, like I'll live in Israel, but I don't want to participate in what's happening over here. Is just, it's not tenable, it's not real, and it's also not, it's not what being is required. I don't think that's being requested from us, but yes.
And I was just going to say, when it comes to this point about our conversation or dialogue between the secular and the religious world is if I may make a point, and I hope you don't take this personally, one of the points that I would make to the religious people or just people in general is that you should be able to listen to the other side. But with you specifically, I don't want you to take this personally. It can sometimes feel like you're dominating the conversation with how you go on and on and on with the point. You're muted.
You're still muted. We cannot hear you.
I would say, Kirk, I appreciate that. You understand that in this forum, two things. One is I am, it's in the context of a class that we're doing, right? So I'm giving over the information I have on this class, presumably, assuming I have more information on this topic than you, specifically this narrow topic of this blessing, number one. So I would probably be saying a lot about it. Number two, in this conversation between me and Gilad, are you feeling that like he's not having a place to express himself, or do you feel that like I'm not hearing what he's saying based on my response?
It's more so the former. It's more so that, and I definitely think you're definitely more knowledgeable than me about Judaism, of course. It's just that when you make a point, I think I agree with Jordan Peterson that you should be concise and precise with your speech. And there's a certain point at which, when you drag a point on for too long, it can feel like you're dominating the conversation unnecessarily.
I got you. I'll try to keep it more concise. Messiah will come.
So I do want to respond.
Be concise.
I tend to be more concise. Kirk, you can testify. Am I concise?
I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's giving me a thumbs up. So there are two things that came to mind when you were talking. One is a conversation I had with a sound technician I went to get my in-ear monitors repaired. So he told me he worked with Eviatar Bana. He, like he says, he's a great person, great musician, all of that. And he said, like many years ago, he asked him, "Who do you vote for?" And he said, "Whoever my rabbi tells me to." And the sound technician was like, what a terrible thing to say. What a terrible attitude. And my attitude, on the contrary to him, was, from everything I've seen from like podcasts and documentaries, like I liked the music he made before he, how do you became observant? Like, I don't know, Chazal B'Tshuvah in English. So
He returned.
Yeah, returned in returnance.
Returning, exactly. We're always returning.
So before that, I liked his music more. I thought it was like much more powerful. I like it less now. But my sense is, as a person, from everything I can see, I think religion has been a positive thing for him. I think he was extremely lost, and I think he is a little less lost. And I don't think, right, like to me, my view of it was like, if he's doing good for himself, for his family, and even wider than that, because a lot of people are listening to his music and finding it meaningful, dayenu. Like I don't need to like also. It's kind of what I said about the direction. I don't need the nuance of whether he votes for the right guy or he's has the right the way of life I think is ideal or something. I think it's great that he's doing okay, and I have enough people in my life that from every direction and walks of life, when someone's not doing okay, like I really wouldn't mind, like I won't mince like the solution to what helps that person. If it helps him be better for himself, for his surroundings, for the world, I'm down for it.
Yeah, and I don't wanna speak for Hezi, but I believe he would say that if someone is not religious because they don't see God in their life, that it's not necessarily he wouldn't morally condemn them, right?
Of course.
So Judaism is not like Westboro Baptist Church. I think you understand that, but I just want to be clear because there are some people who think that all religions are the same, and they're not.
Also, Judaism is not a religion.
Well, it depends. What level of destruction you're talking
I
about?
think.
Just it's a people that has over 2,000 years definitely has taken on more and more of there's there's a religious identity to it, but its core already from the Bible itself is a people first, right? Before there's any talk of Torah, there was a complete surprise to the people leaving Egypt. It was never discussed.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just going to say that there might be a distinction between Judaism as a religion and Jewish people as a nation, where you could say, at a certain sense, Judaism does mean the religious tradition, whereas when you're talking about the nationhood or peoplehood, you would just say Jewish, if that makes sense, as an adjective.
I would say maybe if I could pitch in here, I think. And see, Andrew also wants to talk, so I'll be concise, as Kirk asked. I would just say I don't exactly agree with Chazi. I think that the religious and the cultural are very intertwined and very if you wanted to break the strands apart of what's religion and what's not religion, it gets really messy, and so I think there are religious elements, there are secular elements, but they are or even just peoplehood, but they're far more intertwined. Andrew.
I have somewhat of a question, because I on the face of it, I agree with Hezi here that Judaism is religion and a culture all and whatever an ethnicity all bound up into one, and I'm wondering practically when we look at secular people or people who have, you could say, departed from the religious side for a long while, how do you understand them as still participating in the religion? Like, for instance, people are very concerned about the lost tribes, right? There's these people here. They still have ties to Judaism. We still consider them ethnically Jewish, but they're not really connected to the religion. They haven't been for some time. How does that reintegration happen? There's again, there's a similar case with secular people. For whatever reason, they've fallen out of step with the religion. They can still be attached to the people for or the culture for whatever means. How do you reintegrate is the question.
Are you asking someone right now?
Yeah, sure. If you want to take it, go for it.
Maybe Kirk wants to take it.
I don't exactly know. I'll have to defer to Hezi because he's more knowledgeable about Judaism than I am.
It's not. I'm just trying to think. I'll answer it quickly. I think
Besides Hezi, otherwise it doesn't count.
Right. There's a few issues with how you're framing the question, because you're assuming religious already is the baseline, and religious in what form? Like for the ultra Orthodox today, in the modern Orthodox today, there's plenty of I would say the way most of history, Jews didn't have those categories about themselves, and most of the time they didn't. They went to the temple 3 times a year, And that was really it. If I went right now, if you dropped me in First Temple, period, there's things that might seem similar, and there's things that would be completely foreign to how I participate in religion in my religious life today. And some of that, of course, is understandable due to history, and because of history, decisions have to be made, right, between us and other religions, between us and between us and different sects within our community, because the idea was to keep this group alive. Now, my whole relationship with the secular world changes when I say mine. Let's say, I believe Jewish thought is none of the religious people would ever have, let's say, none of the religious people at that time could have constructed this move of coming to Israel, right? Like, again, it requires the audacity of people that are now looking at the world, like we were saying earlier, in a different way. They're looking at the world and saying, okay, there are moves happening over here, and we are manifesting destiny, right? We were talking about, this is Nachshon ben Amidah, this is Benjamin jumping into the water, right? I can't just wait forever on the sidelines. But as a religious person, for 2,000 years, just being taught, I'm just going to wait because, and again, and there's a reason to this, right? The temple is destroyed. There's no prophecy. I'm going to lock myself into this world of Jewish law. At some point, right, prophecy became alive again. And here you are, a people attached to this land again. So then when I look at the secular, what do you mean? Gilad is a physicist working in Israel. Like, Maimonides talks about how the physicist or someone participating in metaphysics is inside the inner chamber, right? I'm saying people that are just studying math are still outside the garden, right? So he's already participating more than many Jews have in all of history in reviving the nationhood of Israel with his understanding of math and science and participating in Israel, in the land of Israel. Do we know how many God points that's worth? Like, is that worth like 2 Sabbaths? Is that worth one blessing over bread? If the culture in Israel is figuring out how to now literally turn the desert into a green world, and now and sell out that technology, allowing tons of people in the world to prosper and live, is that not like a clear Jewish tenet? Like, so my point being, that conversation needs to be reframed. The religious world was very scared of doing that. That's a conversation that needs to be happening right now. Again, both universally, us and the rest of the world, which is more of like the Noahide move that we're on. But even internally, between, let's say, Gilad and me, him being secular and me being quote unquote religious, and I think you're seeing that happen. There's, again, post October 7th, there's a very big rise in like this spiritual identity, not necessarily becoming, I would say, what you'd call religious. Okay. It's not people are now like walking around and going according to the Jewish law books that I'm participating in, but there is definitely a growing and a revival of some sorts. And like, who says that's not enough, right? Like, there again, I'm saying at this point of history, I'm not looking for like Gilad was saying, for 3.5 this exact equation. I need right now people that are see themselves as who they are and their identity, and now want to work forward. So it's not giving you a full answer, but that's how integration would have to happen. With the lost tribes, that's a more niche conversation. First of all, again, in Israel, they did work with the Ethiopian tribe. They actually just brought in another tribe of Menashe as well. So this is clearly like an interest that Israel has, even from a political or Machiavellian level. Like, right, like if you wanted to figure out the right of return sort of situation, if I flood Israel with like 50 million other lost tribe peoples, I don't have a demographic issue so much anymore with like our Muslim brothers and sisters. But putting aside that more crazy version, yes, even the lost tribes, there'll have to be some sort of conversation. I could only have that conversation, and this goes back to why I think the Noahide Congress is so important, is because, again, and this is history in the making, now as a sovereign nation, I could speak out to the world. I could call on to the Noahides in the world. I could speak out to the other nations of the world and say, this is who Israel is, and my mission is to, through you, the nations of the world will be blessed. And the idea is, we are supposed to be an example of what that looks like, so other nations of the world could be participating with that.
I'll add maybe a point or two to your question, Andrew. So I studied at the secular yeshiva in Israel, and I think the thing that you find out by going to the secular yeshiva, which I think I typically recommend to people, especially secular people, friends who are looking for spirituality in their lives, is that it's kind of unsurprising, right? But like the culture that has sort of led or directed the lives of your ancestors for thousands of years is informing a lot of what you do, because it is, right? You don't, like, at this point, if whether or not you go to synagogue and make a prayer, right? This is something that, for me, because I don't go to synagogue, right? This is something that was a revelation at 18, like how much of the world that I'm living in is a world informed by, 2 millennia or more of Judaism, in that intertwined, amorphous sense that we were talking about before. So, I think that the notion that you sort of presented, that if you've been astray from religion, then it somehow dies out. I think it doesn't happen. I mean, just as a human thing, I think it's kind of like the illusion of what liberalism thought it could be, right? That that people could be sort of this like fantastical individual that can choose what it is and can be whatever it wants to be. I just think you're not that. Like, you can try to resist it. You can, try to go in another direction, but you're informed by everything that was sort of boiled into you by your entire history. I just think that's inevitable.
I'll add to that why does God pick Abraham? Right? He says, I see that you're going to continue teaching your kids. Like, I see that you got it down. You're taking this seriously. And that's why. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for someone that's going to actually like create like some sort of operating system, and he's willing to pass that down right now. Now, there's this concept called Am Sgula, right? We're like a chosen nation. Well, that's Am Nivchar, but like a holy nation.
I think Sgula is like virtue.
Virtue nation. And virtue. That's right. Now, it's not really. There's a play on in a Hebrew word over here, which is in Hebrew. It's also mesugalut. It's what's your capabilities, and the virtue, what we're chosen for. And I'm sorry if you've heard this before, but the example I give is either the Pink Floyd, glass breaking of the light and it shattering to into multicolors, or just a vase, which is everyone, every country, every nation, like Gilad is saying, because of the surroundings we're in, and there's certain, I don't even say like epigenetics, but like there's things that are built into like who we are and how we're acting as certain people, like, right, 2,000 years worth of culture has done its thing. We all need to shine brightly. Judaism is offering to be the vase, the clear vase, which allows everyone to shine as bright as they need to. The mission is in no way to be better and in no way to parent. It's there to allow for that light to shine as bright as possible. And there's things that in the capability, Edom or the West or the East are more capable than us. right? It's not, we don't have like a monopoly on all capabilities or on all virtues. The virtue is that we want to stress everyone else's virtue. The only way we could do that, though, is if we manifest as virtuous. I think in many ways we do. In many ways we fall short. I would claim, and this is more of a theological claim, again, that the tension that you see from the world is that tension, which is there's nothing in between. You must be virtuous, or otherwise it drives the world nuts. It's something that's scraping on the chalkboard. We got to figure that out.
Yeah, and one of the things I would say is, by any chance, either you, Hezi, or Gilad, have either of you guys encountered any of the work of the Israeli public intellectual David Deutsch?
Isn't Deutsch a quantum mechanics guy?
He's a quantum mechanics guy and philosopher.
I think he's like a many worlds interpretation.
Yeah. I was going to say, he makes a point about anti-Semitism, which is that there's the same pattern of anti-Semitism throughout history, which is that Jews will be blamed for different things, but they'll be, whatever they're blamed for, the underlying structure of anti-Semitism is the same throughout history. I don't know if that's exactly what you're talking about, Hezi, but I think it's related, because I think it's related to the idea that Jews are blamed for any influence they have on the other nations, no matter what it is.
Right. So I'm saying that's like, they're the fascists and the communists and it's all those things. Right. So I think it manifests most beautifully in Nick Fuentes.
Yeah.
I would maybe try to explicate your point a bit, or draw it out a bit, Kirk, because I think if I understand it correctly, you're saying that somehow anti-Semites say something along the lines of what Hezi was saying, like, we're not shining bright enough because you're not a good enough vase.
Well, it's something like no matter what influence Jews have, it's not good enough, right? If it's too left wing, too right wing, too socialist, too capitalist, anything Jews do, the anti-Semites will find a way to blame their influence on other cultures.
I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm not sure how it relates. I was trying to relate it to what Hezi was saying, but I think that like that.
I think he's just saying on the level of it being a recognizable pattern. You could say that what he's reading out of that pattern is incorrect, but like I'm saying, the pattern that more about the fact that it's illogical stresses the fact that there's something deeper happening over there, basically.
I do agree there's something deeper. I just think like the pattern is it started with Christianity, in my view, because Christians were Jews until up to some point, like they were Jews. They were followers of Jesus. And at some point, they needed to define what they are, and they defined what they are in contrast to the Jew. And that's sort of the pattern that repeats. Like whatever Chaviv Gur, you sent me one of his things. He mentioned this like in a podcast where he said like, okay, so if you're a Nazi and you have this particularist view, then the Jew is the universalist. And if you're a communist and you have this universalist view, then the Jew is the tribal particularist. And whatever it is, right, like that habit of defining yourself in contrast to whatever the Jew is somehow a recurring pattern in anti-Semitism.
Because I think subconsciously, and in some places consciously, there's and exacerbated more since I would say 1948 is almost like the Jiminy Cricket or the conscience, which is like you don't integrate, whether I'm the capitalist and you're the communist or vice versa. You never play the game, or you manifest in the game and somehow take over, or like it just and that's specifically because you're a unit, because you work together, because you other yourself, and that is a constant reminder to the opposition, which is like you're always looking over your shoulder because there's something else that's not always casting a doubt, even though they're not actually trying to cast a doubt. Their mere existence casts a doubt on there's this thing that still lives from 3,000 years ago that won't shut up, basically. Either won't disappear, or then when it participates, it does well, which also is a problem, because then it's worse than not shutting up. It's then just being even more vocal. So our responsibility, though, again, the world is not waiting for us anymore to explain itself. And that's why the issue of Hasbara doesn't matter. They don't want us to explain itself. They want us to be ourselves. And we're not. We're just not. We're not those people yet. And it sucks.
Yeah.
And I think we are in many ways. And you can start looking at metrics. And that's why when I see an article from this Christian article about how Jonathan Peugeot posted about how, like, someone writing how the Christians might have read the Jewish people wrong because they see now, it's rate of replacement with regards to kids, and it's technology. It's like an anomaly compared to the rest of the world, and we might have to rethink this. That's my whole claim. My whole claim is that, like, I have the radical claim is that the mysterium of Christianity is that you folded who Israel is all into one person named Jesus, right? He is the priest, and he is the king, and he is the prophet, and he is the Son of God. And it makes total sense. You have to think about it again. There's like 20%, I think they say, of the Roman Empire was thinking of converting or in that process. You had another group of people that weren't converting, but were like Noahide groups. That's a huge population. And suddenly, throughout this period, right, the temple is destroyed, and everyone's left with this energy of, like, there is something interesting about the Jewish element happening over here, but now there's nothing. We still want this story. We want this story so badly that we're going to now envelop what this story is, right? The Talmud talks about it, saying, because the way we were acting, we brought the destruction of the temple and prophecy, and the Shekhinah left. That was felt in the world as we killed God, basically. It's because of the Jews that the presence of God has been removed. That feeling gets now repackaged into a beautiful little narrative, right? Which he's the son of Joseph. The bad guy is Judas, right? So again, you have the Judah and Joseph narrative. He has 12 apostles. There's 12 sons of Jacob. There's a whole element happening over here again. And this has nothing to do with historical Jesus that might have lived. And it has nothing to do with maybe he made miracles. And it has nothing to do with even if he resurrected from the dead. None of those things contradict what I'm still saying, which is the world right now, the Christian world right now, and the Islam world right now, and the Muslim world right now is looking and saying, like, who are you? If you're, okay, you want to challenge us, you want to challenge our theology, then be flipping amazing. But, like, as Gilad, you and I are saying right now, like, I don't know if we're being flipping amazing.
Yeah.
If we're like talking about sort of theories for things we don't understand that much about, I'm curious if you brought up, like, replacement rate. Why do you think Israelis, including secular Israelis, so it's not just a religious thing, are having more kids?
Why do I think? Again, you're controlling for the Arab population, the Haredi population. There's, like, some elements of, okay, so it's the meaning. I mean,
like it's 1 point, I think 85 or 95 or something like that on, like, secular liberal people, correct. which is like, I don't know, the average in Europe is like 1.4 or something.
Right.
And, like, I'm just saying, like, 1.85 or 1.95, like, that's a population shrink, but it's not population collapse. It's not like what in South Korea, Germany, and whatever are facing.
Many countries.
Yeah. So
why? Meaning, and this has to do with the meaning crisis. You have an antidote for that. You have meaning. You have Amanetzach Lo Mefached. You have this concept of Mashiach, right? Even if, like, that's what it is. That's why the government covers 2 successful IVF treatments, because it's a people that I mean, and that is messianism. It's optimism. I believe that the world is moving towards a certain place.
And you think this is alive in liberal secular people? That's the thing.
In Israel?
Yeah, in Israel.
For sure. That's I'll tell you where you see it. You see it just in the phrase of Yatov. Yatov, you have to think about this. This is not something, it's not just hearing for someone, like, in a correct, and I think you'll agree with me. You could have, like, today there was, like, a terrorist attack, Yatov, right? That Yatov, you'd be like, well, it's out of necessity. Even if that's true. I'm just saying the attitude in Israel is, like, we're very cynical in a certain sense, but there's a lot of that. There is a liveliness. And I don't know if we discussed this, but again, I'll give it to you as another data point. I think what we see is like a World War II American fighting millions of soldiers. We see that as like, the whole country fighting. I think there was like 2% or something like that of like America was fighting. Ukraine right now, which would be like, relevant to sort of to our kind of war that's happening right now, is 3.8% of the population. And I think we are 5.8% of the population at its peak, which was like 400,000 like reserve soldiers or things like that. Now, I'm not including, which you and I both know, the Hamalim, the school, like all the other people that are participating. You don't have that kind of energy. Like if you went to most countries in the world, is France picking up right now? Are all the people running out to the streets? Now you can tell it because it's existential. But I would say like in America, or I would say in Ukraine, that feeling is also there. I very much believe in the feeling here, which there is that spirit over here.
I'm not trying to completely dissuade you, but my emphasis is on something else. I feel like the most telling feature is when war breaks out anywhere, but like if you mention Ukraine, war breaks out in Ukraine, people, like masses of refugees, need to get out of Ukraine. And
right, people flew in.
Yeah, and generally in Israel, like that's a cultural thing, and it depends on the severity of war, and it depends on what you exactly expect, etc. Right? But I think the sense that I have is that people within liberal, secular, completely non-religious lives have real community. That is my sense of it. That even if you don't feel like you're necessarily like in tune with like the tune everyone's playing. I mean, I can't imagine I would be tormented by being stuck abroad when the war starts, and I'm less tormented by going to the bomb shelter every, few hours because of a missile, because this is where the people I care about are.
Oh.
This is where my community is.
So tell me, Gilad, when you're in the bomb shelter randomly, are you in the bomb shelter with civilians or your brothers? How does it feel to you? You said like community.
So I'm saying like specifically I'm in the bomb shelter of this.
I know, but I'm saying like, I'm going wider than that. When you see the people in Tel Aviv are now running into the...
So I feel like that, like I'm talking personally. I don't know what the experience of the average person, but I know it's quite different from mine in a lot of ways. Like when people sing the anthem, I feel that that's fake. I know today, right? As a kid, I'm talking, but I know today that that's my personality. I am an outsider. Like I'm built to be an outsider. But the sense of it, like if you're asking me whether a person I'm with in the bomb shelter feels like my brother, my sense is no. I'm very introverted and reserved. But my sense is when October 7th happens, I need to check in with everyone I know, and everyone is affected in some way by this. And like the circle, like that, I feel like, there's the small world theory of, how many steps of connection you have to each other person. And I feel like that network is very tight in Israel, generally. That is my sense of it. That like whatever it is, they don't have to be my brothers. Right. But even another example, which is quite far, there was a very tragic event where a small family of Russian immigrants were killed by a rocket impact from Iran in Haifa, and I felt like the mother was a vocal teacher, and like I felt very moved by that because I have a friend who's also he came from Uzbekistan, but like basically a Slavic family, even his mother is the same name, and it felt like this is close to me in a way that, doesn't make other types of sense, right? It's, to me, it was like, it feels like the real connections I have are always, at best a step away from whatever's happening. Everything feels more personal, more directly connected. And I think, by the way, that if we go to politics, that is why I feel like the political animosity, right, strikes a much deeper nerve in me. To me, like, the sorts of vulgarities and just direct violence, it doesn't feel like, there's enough distance from those people that would make those accusations of me that I can feel like, I don't know, safe enough. I feel like it all touches close to home.
Andrew, you here? Just going to ask him what he thinks about what he's hearing, because he's bringing up this question. I hear what you're saying. I'm thinking about it. I want to say that I hope. I think we have we have like such PTSD from like our past, our history as Jews, like that we always have like an antidote for letting it ever get that bad. Like as far as like sort of civil war. I mean, that's why it's also like, like in Israel, it's called like Milchemet Achim, right? Like a brother's war, because like even if it's some of that's like a narrative that's built on top of it, there's very much the sense where we're always reminding ourselves that like, we've done this, like it can never go to that place, specifically because we know we've done that before and how horrible it was. Right? Like unlike the American story, the Civil War doesn't lead to the birth of a nation, right? Like our Civil War leads to like, the destruction of our temple and like, a horrible history. I think that's very palpable. I think again, obviously the fact that we share you said these connections are much, much closer, like 6 people, right? Like if I'm living like in Wyoming and someone else is living in New York, like that connection's not there. When you said community, I mentioned this blessing. Usually it's interpreted, and the nations of the world will be blessed through you. But it's really, the families of the world will be blessed by you. I believe we're in a unique position in Israel where we are both a country, a state, a regional power, but also a family. And if you do that well, you could show what does community look like from the individual all the way into the body politic that actually cares about each other. Like, can you imagine like planning a city, but like having all those things in mind and being able to pull it off? That's the model we're supposed to show the world. Be like, look, and look at that. Like we use great tech to create great, awesome stuff. And now like, hey, other neighbors, like, you do that too. Create like awesome, and now you'll have more time for your kid, so you could build community, because we've seen over 2,000 years that like that is amazing. That keeps people together, like all the good stuff. So like I very much like believe that, and it's again, it's sad because the religious voices you hear in politics, they all have the same verses that I'm talking about. And so it's just boggles the mind. It doesn't boggle the mind. There's a tremendous amount of trauma. I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying, like, there's people that they're I want to say like that Ben-Gvir, like the race is in. I don't even want to go into it. I'm not trying to like cover for him. It's just it's too
Yeah.
depressing.
Before, I presume you got to get going pretty soon, Hezi?
Yeah.
Before we go, can I ask a couple questions to you and Gilad, just but that are not directly related to this? So this week's Parsha is about the Nazarite, right? So didn't you say you wanted to be a Nazarite when you were growing up?
Yeah, when I was much younger.
What's the name of the rabbi who was the Nazir, the Nazarite?
Are you saying is there a rabbi that is a Nazir today?
No, there was one who died, but he was alive.
The student of Rav Kook, David Cohen.
Yeah.
Nazir.
I want to look more into his ideas. I want to look more into his biography and ideas because I heard he was an interesting guy.
He was very into bringing back prophecy. He has a whole book about that.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting the book right now. It's a thin book. But yeah, he really wanted that. He wanted to get to the next level. And he also did a lot of the transcribing and writing of Rabbi Kook as well.
Yeah, and then the next question is to Gilad. So, to my understanding, I believe we talked about this before. You said you've worked with quantum information theory, right?
Sort of. Like I worked with quantum mechanics and like quantum mechanics paradoxes. My PhD work is about it.
Yeah. So there's an echo. Okay, now there's not. So one of the things that Deutsch has mentioned in the past is this idea of constructor theory, which is, as I understand it, the idea that we should conceptualize the laws of physics as basically through a counterfactual lens where something is possible or impossible. And so I'm curious if you're familiar with constructor theory, and if so, what you have on his perspective that we should conceptualize laws of physics as basically what is physically constraining through what is impossible, rather than merely determining what will happen based on initial conditions.
It sounds vaguely familiar. I don't think I've ever gone deep into it. I think it might correlate to the like Feynman integrals approach to looking at things, which means like basically, right, the path any object ends up taking is the path of minimum action, which sort of looks at it sort of implies that a particle sort of explores all of the different possibilities that it could have taken theoretically, and then optimizes on action. Like even though like it's definitely a twist, right? When you look at it, it's like you're used to thinking of like that a particle thinks locally, right? It reacts locally to what's going on, but in quantum mechanics, and as you get to more fundamental things, you realize that minimized action is a more generalized description, and that means you have to do away with trajectories, right? So you can't talk about like the electron was here and then it went through this path over there. It was here and then we measured it here, and on the way, like it did all of the different things, and then the one that minimized action.
Well, and I'm talking out of school here, and we'll end on this, but will quantum computing allow you to trace up that pattern more specifically?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it's supposed to do. When you talk about the most, I think, interesting and
so I was following. I was like, I wanted to make sure if I'm okay, fine.
I'll just try to be concise about exactly what I mean about it. Like quantum chemistry is the most promising, I think, field or direction in quantum computing, and that basically means you could simulate a physical system without having to like separately simulate all of the different options it could go to, but actually let the bits entangle and interfere with each other like the electrons would have with each other in an atom
Yeah.
or in a molecule, and then that lets you find like ways to make ammonia. Basically, that's the holy grail.
Yeah, and one of the things Deutsch talks about is this idea of what he calls the Deutsch Church-Turing thesis, where in his view, every physical process can be computed through counterfactual reasoning. And so, yeah, that you do get in computability theory, and it is sort of related to like Popper's idea of the propensity interpretation of probability. But it's a long conversation.
I remember now where I heard about this from Deutsch. Like he had this whole thing. I think that was I'm pretty sure it was Deutsch, where he had like, if you have a computer that would be turned on by a photon that is dependent on a quantum process, whether it's like this computer or that computer that could be turned on, then he like had like, then you could know, like counterfactual processing means you could actually not turn on the computer, like the photon never reaches it, but you read some result somewhere else that says like, if the computer had been turned on, then that result would have been yes or no.
But
So
isn't
that's
that
just mind-boggling thing.
Hakol Safui Verashuna Tuna?
That that is irrelevant, but yeah.
I'm trying to map it out to some pattern here.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we solved 95% of the world issues. So on that note, everyone have a good night. Believe in yourself.
Good night, everyone.
Fantastico. To anyone that my meandering was unpleasant, please forgive me. I just get very excited about Torah. I don't specifically think in any way that it's my opinion that's interesting. I just trying to explain. All right. Bye, kids.